What's up, guys? I've been thinking a lot about the publishing industry for comic artists, for just book artists, novelists, children's books creators, and I've been thinking about how the system doesn't work for us anymore as well as it used to. I think that self publishing might just be the way we should go moving forward. I kind of want to dive into that. My name is Raj Solanki. I'm an independent comic creator, and let's just dive into it. So, historically, publishing through actual publishers such as Penguin Random House, or if we're thinking comics specifically, Marvel, DC, Image, Boom, or even younger graphic novels such as graphics for Scholastic and stuff like that. That's kind of been the main source of income. Been the main avenue for people to really make a career out of comics, right? But now I really feel like in the last, I don't know, probably 10-ish years, there's been a shift where self publishing has really come to the forefront. And there's a few reasons I think that why that's occurred. I think one, I think publishing, there's a lot of gatekeeping involved. If you want a book to go through a publisher, there's a lot of editors, there's a lot of trial by committee, whereas there's a lot of people looking at your work and telling you if it's good or not. They're telling you, like, this won't sell now, or this will sell now, or they're telling you that you need to make all these changes to the story. And some of them might be minor, some of them might be major. But also, I think what is so strange to me and so weird is that no other business model besides publishing tells you that, hey, you're going to create this whole thing, you're going to create this whole product. We are going to, as the company, take 95% of the cut and you're going to get 5% of the royalties, right? That is actually like, that is mind blowing. And the more you think about it, the more, when you put it in like those terms and those numbers, it is actually, it seems predatory almost. I don't think publishing is all bad, and I think there's a place for publishing. But I think it's kind of wild that we're working for 5% of the cut of something that we make 100% of the actual product, right? I think also something that's changed is been the advent of like social media and how that has affected how artists and creators are viewed. A lot of times, like in the past, publishing was really, we create the work, the creators create the work, and then the publishers take that book, take that comic, they do the marketing, they reach out to bookstores, comic book shops, this and that. They take care of all the PR, all the marketing, all the publicity. But now it's become that we as artists have to be social media influencers. I know one of my videos I talk about we need to change the way we think about social media. But I think over the last couple of weeks, I'm reconsidering even what I was talking about in that first video. So I'll probably have more thoughts on that and kind of what I'm thinking in another video. But I feel like I'm already moving away from what I talked about in my social media video. Um, that's not to say don't go watch that social media video. I think there is a lot of value in what I am saying. I think there's the truth there, but I think there's some things that I probably jumped the gun on. But yeah, now that social media is a thing, publishers are less likely to take someone if they don't have a social media following. But in my mind, why do I need a social media following if you, as the publisher, are supposed to be doing the marketing? I'm not supposed to be doing the marketing, at least in how publishing used to be, right? And if I am supposed to be marketing myself, if I am supposed to be putting myself out there, making YouTube videos, and writing newsletters and being active on social media, then I should get a bigger cut, right? Like if I'm doing that, then I should be like, okay, well, I was getting 5%, but now you're having me do all the marketing. Why is our percentage not higher? Because the percentages have not changed, even though the market has changed and shifted. Because I don't think there's anything wrong with us having to be more active on social media, but I think publishers should reflect that, and they haven't done so. I also think that as comic artists, the tip of the mountain for some people is Marvel and DC, right? The big two. But I would say, and I've heard this from a lot of other sources, a lot of people that have worked for Marvel and DC, in the last 10, 15, 20 years, rates have not gone up. Page rates have not gone up, right? So it's like, okay, and I couldn't tell you a number of what a page rate is, but if like just through a quick Google search, it was $300 to $400 if you're kind of a medium, like an average artist to like an above average artist for a page, right? But how long does that take, right? Like if you're doing an issue that's 24, 22, 24 pages, that can take you, if you're like working a page a week, like super fast, right? That's still 6 months. And I'm trying to do the math here really quick. So 6 months, 12, you'd be getting about $1,600 a month, right? So that is not enough to sustain. That's like less than minimum wage in terms of like 40-hour weeks, right? And so you got to think about it that way. Because that was what you'd be doing full time. But if let's say now let's shift our focus, let's shift our ideas. Now we're in an age where I think self-publishing offers us so much more opportunity. Where one, our ideas aren't gatekept. Like there is someone out there. There's so many different ideas. If you go on Kickstarter right now, you can find a comic that could appeal to anyone. And so I think that's a plus. Like whereas like if you're going for Marvel, you're going to DC. They have a specific style. In this moment now, they want mostly realism for their main continuity books. They don't go as cartoony, and they don't skew as young. And they have little imprints where they'll be like, okay, let's go younger. They did like Unbeatable Squirrel Girl with Ryan North and Erica Henderson, and that had a different art style than what they are doing, but that's like an exception, right? And so I think there's a lot of, and the publishers and the people in charge at those companies, like they are looking for something specific, and you're only allowed to tell really obviously superhero stories, right? Image is a little different, but even then there's the expectation of like you are a market, you have to market yourself, you have to go through all these things. But I think that some people like the idea of Image Comics because you get to keep your creator-owned work. But I think you still have to pitch to them. They still have to like your idea before they will approve it. So for me, if I was ever to go to Image, I would come to them with a story that I've already finished and just say, hey, like this is what I got. It's finished. It's complete. Is this something you're interested in? And that'd only be after it's already run its course through all my means of trying to sell it. And so that's one thing. The big publishing companies, they have their style, they have what they're looking for, and they don't pay great. Also, we as artists, as we create our own work, we can determine and we can set our own prices, right? As opposed to getting 5% of a publishing cut, we can be like, okay, we're taking care of the printing, we're taking care of the shipping. You build those expenses into when we do like a Kickstarter campaign or an Indiegogo or whatever platform you choose to use. And you can be like, okay, I am going to set my price as, I say 5 times cost. I think 5 times cost is a good, something to like be aspirational for. Sometimes it just depends on how much you're able to print. Because like my hope is one day, whenever I launch a Kickstarter for the story I'm working on, that I'll be able to hopefully print at least, if you can get it to print 500 copies, I think that's ideal, because that brings the cost of each issue or each book down, and that makes it feasible for you to charge at least 5 times cost, right? I mean, I would, if I can go more, you go more. And that also allows you the leeway to like print extra copies to sell later down the line. But that'll be a different, I think I'll, later down the line, whenever I actually am going into the weeds about Kickstarter, that's something I'll want to like, I'll do like a video series about my process, what I'm going through, the pitfalls and all the things, my mistakes and the things that I've figured out about that. But that's down the line. I'm not ready for that yet. But so that's another thing about self-publishing, right? It's like, okay, if you're doing 5 times cost, now you are making 80% of the cut, right? And eventually, and if you're running a Kickstarter, the Kickstarter should factor in all these expenses anyway, so you're really making all the profits yours, which is way different than working with a publisher. I think in certain areas, where publishing does really well, is the children's book market, because these are parents that are buying it. Kids obviously aren't on the internet looking for books, right? So if parents are trying to buy these things for their kids as gifts, or even like middle grade audience and getting into libraries and things like that, I think publishing can do a good job. That's something I'm considering with my story, because it is a middle grade, like it is towards a middle grade audience, but I think mine's broad enough that it can be appealing to older people too, like adults. And so I think I would leave it to like me finishing this story, going through Kickstarter, and then once the project has run its course, then taking it to a Scholastic or an Image or something like that to see if it has a second life. What else? Yeah, I think the most important thing for me, like in this conversation, is owning and controlling your own work, and being someone who's kind of like, hey, like I created these characters, and so they're mine. Like these are my stories to tell. These are my characters to do with what I want, and later down the line, if I choose to, option them out for TV, or if I, again, take them to a publisher, or if whatever I want to do, I have control over these characters. I can write a whole new book series about them later down the line. But if I'm just creating, let's say I create a new character for Marvel, I have no control over that. There's been a lot of people now, like when a new Marvel movie comes out or something like that, let's say, I'm not going to name any names, but let's say a new Marvel character comes out and they're put into the movies. There's been talk from people like, oh man, the creator, the artist, whoever created this character should get a cut, or should get paid, or should get acknowledgement, or something like that. But though I am all for that, and I wish that was how it worked, I think in reality, these are work for hire contracts, and work for hire contracts stipulate like whatever you create for that company is that company's. The character is not yours. The creation is not yours. In certain instances, like the creator of Deadpool, Rob Liefeld, he has had more say, it feels like, at least, in like where the character is going in the movies. He has been more involved. I think they've maybe brought him on as a consultant or something like that. But Marvel can still do whatever they want with Deadpool, regardless of if Rob Liefeld likes what they're doing or not. If the character's not his, he has no control over that character anymore. Once he created it, it was Marvel's. And so, if you create your own characters, create your own stories, create your own books, you're in charge, and you take the project from start to finish. Those are yours. You can do with them whatever you please. And I think it's more satisfying, honestly. Like I like as I'm working on my story, I can do with it what I want. No one can tell me, no, you can't put that in there, because it's my story, right? Like I'm doing comics. I'm including food recipes in certain pages. I'm gonna include like maps and different things like that that aren't traditionally in comics, because it's like, this is what's interesting to me, this is what's fun, this is what I think people will find interesting, and I can target it to an audience that I want to target. Obviously, like, my story right now is very focused on Indian culture and Indian kids, and I want them to really enjoy it. And so, like, that's who I'm writing this for. I'm writing this for little Raj, who didn't have stories like this. And still, there aren't stories like this out there. Why? Because, like, I'm the one who needs to tell these stories. And so it just gives you more freedom to do what you want with your career, even. So that's kind of what I really want to talk about today, is like, I think now we're moving into a self-publishing era, and I think that's actually more financially feasible and stable, for us. I think if I can get a freelance gig with Marvel or DC, I would not say no to that, because I think that would just be like checking off like a bucket list item. But I don't want to build my career around that. I want to build my career around my own work, because I think that's more satisfying. If you're thinking about going the self-publishing route, a resource I would recommend is something called selfpublishingpro.com. They are about to launch a new, I think, 10-week self-publishing course, and I'm really interested. I don't know if I can afford it at the moment, so we'll see if that's something I'm able to do, but that is something that I will do in the future if I don't do it this time around. It launches this month, I think towards the end of it, and probably in a week or so, honestly. And it is basically 10 weeks of self-publishing. Like, it'll take you through all the steps of self-publishing. The course is run by Jake Parker, Lee White, and Will Terry, who are the founders of SVSLEARN.com, and I will link the course and each creator down in the show notes below. But what the course is going to do is take you from concept of a project all the way to finish, right? So it's going to be like, okay, first let's evaluate if the idea you have is a good one, if it is possible to find a niche or an audience for this product, and then it'll help you kind of tweak your idea to kind of prepare it for the next step. It'll also put you in contact with other creators who are also taking the course, and so you can learn from each other. It'll probably be a Discord server or something like that, and then it will take you to the next step of like, okay, now that you have an idea, how do you start creating that idea? How do you create a schedule for yourself? How do you create a marketing plan? What are the best steps to marketing? What will be the best routes to how to figure out how to ship all this product? Should you do a Kickstarter? Should you do Patreon, GoFundMe? Like, it'll take you through all the steps that go into self-publishing a project. And I think that's the first step. I was like, once you figure out how to self-publish one project, you'll learn from your mistakes, because a mistake is bound to happen in the process. It's a big deal to self-publish something, right? Especially on a larger scale. And so I think this 10-week workshop course, where you're actually have face-to-face time and Zoom meetings with these three people who have done multiple Kickstarters themselves, successful Kickstarters, who have the experience, I think is an invaluable tool. And so hopefully, like, if that's something that interests you, I really recommend it. Like I said, again, I'm considering, if not this time, at least next time, jumping in. They are doing a thing where they're sending out, I think, like 10 videos or so, maybe a little less, over the span of a week, as like a intro, or like to kind of get you to see what the course is going to include and kind of entice you, I guess. So that's their marketing. So yeah, I'll link all that in the show notes below. But yeah, if you take away nothing else, I want you to know that you deserve to own and control your own career. And the best way to do that, I think, is self-publishing first and creating your own projects before going to a traditional publisher. Yeah, but that's all I got for today. If you have any projects you're working on right now, let me know. And if you've learned anything about the self-publishing industry, if what's worked for you, what hasn't worked for you, just leave a comment below, and subscribe and like the channel if you find it valuable. Peace. Thanks.